Hey, how you doing, Janet? Nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
We're going to spend the next 30 minutes talking about what you've accomplished. And one of the things that, because I've gotten to know you for several years now, is in various activities, whether it's in school or in the business. One of the things that's a hallmark of what you've done here is you've learned a lot, you've accomplished a lot, and without question, you've made a positive impact on the community.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And that's why it's so easy to have a conversation with you today. So you want to start and give a little bit about your background?
Sure, absolutely. So I grew up, my dad was in the Air Force, and I was born in France, and we went over to Germany, kind of moved all around the country. We ended up settling in Pensacola, Florida, so the last place my dad was stationed. And growing up there was great. I graduated from University of West Florida, where I got a bachelor's in legal administration. I thought I'd be a paralegal and then go on to law school. But moved to Atlanta, got a job, and ended up in the financial services industry, where basically I've been ever since. Right now I'm a principal at Ryan, which is a global tax consulting firm, and enjoy that immensely. And a large part of my job is managing client relationships. So I really enjoy that, and it really gives me an opportunity to use my Six Sigma background. I'm a black belt and also Lean certified in Six Sigma. And for any Six Sigma project, it's all about voice of the customer and what is important to the customer, and listening to that and building your business processes around that. And that's very important to our company. And I believe that's a mentality, a philosophy that should be in government as well. And that's something that we've tried to instill in the school committee. So I'm been very happy that I've been able to kind of merge both the business side and the government side in my last 3 years.
Well, one of the things, you hit on something that's close to my heart, and that's that voice of the customer. Mm-hmm. And I think as we talk this afternoon here, is what I'm going to get a sense is, and this is how I've gotten to know you, is you put the customer at the center of everything we do.
Yes.
Which is really the voice of the customer. Mm-hmm. So it's whether in any of these activities that we talked about today, I've seen that in everything you do.
Oh, thank you.
And the other part is that fiduciary, that financial responsibility comes through. Is you really know how to create efficiency. So sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no. So my family and I moved up here. I met my husband, Bill, who's originally from New Orleans. I met him in Atlanta, and we got married, had our son, and we're looking for a better quality of life. So we ended up moving up here to Massachusetts, and the company I worked for had an office in Billerica, and I remember asking specifically, where should we move? You know, what's the quintessential New England town that's going to provide us with the best quality of life, great school system? And it was overwhelming at work. Everyone pointed me towards Chelmsford. So I had one day to find a house, and rode around Chelmsford with my little video camera, went back to Atlanta that night, showed the video to my husband, and the house we're in now is the house that we ended up buying. We sold our house. We were up here within a matter of just a couple of months, and we've been thrilled ever since. So, we were looking for that quality of life, and we certainly found it. And our son entered the Byam School and volunteered wherever we could there. But we noticed at the Byam in the middle, there's a courtyard, and it was terribly overgrown. And as a family, we got together and worked with some other folks there at the school and cleaned it up, because we saw there a great opportunity to create an outdoor learning center, is basically what they ended up calling it. And it was an opportunity for the teachers to bring the students out there, which they did. And they'd go out there and they would read, they would write poetry, they would draw, and it was basically like a free classroom. And it was kind of my first real experience with how Chelmsford loves its open space. So that was something that we really loved, and as a family. And from there, I started. I said, well, I want to do something more. And that's where I saw an opening on the town website for the Economic Development Commission. And that's kind of what I do with my business.
Actually, that's where we first met.
That's correct.
Right, and in fact, you were vice chair there.
Yes.
So again, you're showing that leadership that I've gotten to know you for. Mm-hmm. And I think the impressive thing is when we started working is there was no Economic Development Commission before we got there. right?
I believe there had been one many years ago. I mean, many years ago, in the, I think about the mid-'90s.
Okay, so we're really restarting it.
Yes.
So can you talk about what you thought we accomplished? Hopefully I can include myself in it. But go ahead.
Yeah, I think it was a great group and a lot of enthusiasm. And I think what we saw was a need for better communication. Again, it was that voice of the customer. Are we listening to our local businesses? One of the things we heard, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things we heard was just better communication. You know, we didn't even have a website. And if we could have a little bit of one-stop shopping for some of the businesses in town, that would help guide them to the information that they're looking for. You know, some of the opportunities that are available within Chelmsford, they would love that. So, you know, we worked on that, and I thought that was a great success.
The other thing that also struck me that was a game changer that you had a great hand in is when we held the roundtables, and I see that when you got to the school committee, the public forums continued, is by holding those roundtables with business leaders, it really opened their eyes to how they thought about it. Yeah. And really broke some paradigms. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll never forget that roundtable that was at the library and those local business owners. And, you know, they gave us a lot of good feedback. Again, some strengths, and certainly pointed out some of our weaknesses that we had and how we could be a little more business friendly. But again, it all just goes back to that voice of the customer, whether the customer is a child in the school system or a parent or, you know, just a resident in town, taxpayer. It's very important that we listen to them, and then we structure our processes, and we structure our government, our schools, and everything around that. And again, we got a lot of good feedback from that. You know, I guess a couple of the issues were, you know, if somebody's opened up, say, a yogurt stand and or a yogurt shop. They don't want to have to run around town hall to all these different departments. They'd kind of like one-stop shopping. You know, a nice little packet that says, hi, welcome to Chelmsford. You want to start a business. Here's all you need to know.
So, again, another example is kind of resonates is looking for efficiencies to make things better. And if you could get into your school committee stuff, because I think we're going to see that again.
Okay, yeah, and from there, again, I start looking towards the school committee, you know. Sons are in the schools, and, you know, I just said, you know, where could I contribute? You know, how could I lend my business experience to the school committee and give of my time? And I remember very distinctly hearing, you know, there were budget issues. You know, people were asking for an override, people, you know, saying that the state's not giving us enough money. And I couldn't help but think maybe there are some areas of efficiency. And I remember asking some folks, and they said, no, there's, you know, we've looked everywhere that we can. You know, unfortunately, it's looking to where we need to make cuts. And I thought that was very unfortunate. Again, that's why I ran for the school committee. And lo and behold, there were some opportunities for efficiencies and savings there.
So can you talk about your initial time at the school committee?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I ran on three basic principles: accountable leadership, fiscal responsibility, and improved communication. Now, one of the first things we did was we hired a new superintendent. That was Dr. Frank Tiano, and we've been thrilled with him. He's been more than we could ever hope for in a superintendent. He's really embraced it.
So now you led that process, right? Because by that point in time, you'd become chair of the school committee, right?
No, actually I was not. That was just, I had come onto the school committee, and approximately 4 months later, Dr. Yeoman had resigned. Okay. And then Kathy Duffett was the chair at the time.
Okay.
And she led that process, and we ended up hiring Dr. Tiano. We thought he was by far the best candidate.
Okay.
And you know, one of the things I mentioned also while I was running was the importance of a 5-year strategic plan. Again, kind of bringing the business side into the school system. And you know, at the time, the current superintendent wasn't really embracing that, but Dr. Tiano, he got it, and he understood the importance of that strategic plan and establishing guiding principles and goals for the school system that would basically serve as a basis for all of our decisions. You know, why are we making these investments? Why are we going down this path? You know, it's because this is where we want to be at the end of this year or 3 years or 5 years from now. So it was very key that we have that strategic plan, and we have that in place now.
Well, that's the second time we've talked that I've witnessed that strategic planning, understanding your core customers and who you're serving it. Because that was a major focus of yours on the Economic Development Committee, was really understanding what the community is about and how can we best service the community so through our roundtables. And now you're looking at the school or the school district. You're talking about how do we best service our students.
And Dr. Ciano, when he went out to gather information for that strategic plan, he didn't develop that like in a in a vacuum. He went out, he spoke with students, he spoke with teachers, he spoke with parents, people in the community, business owners. He spoke with everybody because it's the community's school system, and he wanted to get all of their input and form a partnership with them. And again, we made that happen. Now, talking about the efficiencies, over the past 3 years, we've made a lot of tough decisions, but those decisions have led us to over $1 million in savings. We conducted some efficiency audits in our special ed transportation and food services, and we've outsourced our custodial services. And although that was controversial, our schools are clean, and we, just from that alone, that contract alone, almost $800,000 in savings that we've had to use not only to just pay the bills for contractual obligations, but we've been able to invest in technology, buy textbooks that we needed, and restore back some teacher positions and guidance counselor positions that were very critical to our school system. Again, we have a strategic plan. We know what it is that we're working towards, so it makes it easier for us to make those kind of decisions because we know what we're headed towards.
Well, now, if I'm not mistaken, is as you focus on the students and building up the core and how can we best service students in a very cost-efficient manner, we haven't lost all that much. Isn't like Chelmsford schools in like top 20% on most metrics? Yeah,
absolutely. Our student achievement is increasing. We're very proud of all that we've accomplished. So, we're doing more with, we're always having to do more with less. But the fact that we've been able to achieve these savings and invest back into the schools, that's something we're very proud of.
So now, if I'm not mistaken, also is that the average spending per student to gain these great grades is lower than average?
The state average.
Than the state average.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So I think, to me, that's a true testament to your work on the committee, is wringing out efficiencies, but not at the expense of the students.
Absolutely.
So we're below average versus the state.
For spending.
Yeah, above average in terms of student achievement.
Absolutely.
That's a great achievement for the school committee and you and your leadership.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. But I mean, I'm just part of a very productive team. While I'd love to be able to take responsibility for all the good stuff, I'm just a part of a very good team.
Unless we have the business processes in place, which is what you talk about, your core competency, that can't happen, right?
Absolutely.
Because otherwise we're on a whim and anecdotal evidence, and I can
see... you're reacting, you're not being proactive, absolutely.
Yeah, so, as we go into this, so you've spent some time on the school committee, and you've seen the business side and the community side with the economic development. Because, in fact, you were in that role where we talked about the crossroads of community commerce.
Yes.
Focusing on the community first and foremost, right?
Yes.
And then looking at the commerce side. So you really pushed to have that balance between the two.
Yeah. I like to consider myself, I'm a mom here in the community. My kids, my family is very important to me. I've, volunteered. I've been that soccer coach. I've help coach basketball teams. I've got the business side. I get up every day and I go to work, yet I try to volunteer. And I just try to think of myself as, a well-rounded candidate, to be honest with you, somebody who's got multi-dimensional experience in this town. So, all of these components, I believe I'm bringing forward to my candidacy as for the Board of Selectmen.
Well, I think it's important if we go and talk about, as you're running for Board of Selectmen, and if we could spend a little time about integrating your past experiences, because we've talked about the achievements of the school district,
right,
as we wring out efficiencies, lower the cost per student, yet increase performance.
Yes.
In economic development, we were able to bring a couple companies to town, find some differentiators for the town that meant something to the business community, but not at the expense of the residents.
Yes.
So now, start weaving that into your candidacy.
So, yeah, these are all things that, like I said, my business experience, my experience in volunteering in the community, this is certainly something I want to bring forward to the Board of Selectmen, and that, you know, I think makes me an excellent candidate. It's like we've been discussing for the past however many minutes, it's about the voice of the customer and listening to what the community wants. And what I hear, you know, as I'm out talking with folks, the number one thing I'm hearing from people is tax relief. And, you know, that's, if I were to be elected, that's one of my top priorities, is focusing on providing tax relief for the residents. And I think that can be achieved by, or part of it can be achieved by looking at efficiencies on the town side. I'd be interested, just like on the school system, performing efficiency studies. Some of those could certainly be done internally, but I know that the Mass Department of Revenue does this for towns for free, and I've been in touch with some other selectmen in other towns that have had this done, and you know, there's a lot of great ideas that come out of that. They identify areas for savings through either consolidations, you know, further consolidations between, say, the town and the schools, and also regionalization opportunities. So what a lot of these towns have done when they have these studies is they don't just take the studies and say, okay, we're going to go do this right now. They'll set up a government study subcommittee, and from there they'll take the recommendations from the state and truly determine, are these the best ideas for our town? And that's something, again, I'd like to bring forth as a member of the Board of Selectmen.
So to me, what you're talking about is improving an on situation. I mean, I look at it, you know, I was going to ask you what your greatest achievement was in the school committee.
Oh, okay.
But I'm going to give you what I think it was.
Okay.
Okay, and then we can have that discussion. There was a change of focus when you joined the school committee. It was one from we spend it because we can. Because one of the things that highlights it is what Dr. Tiano talked about when he talked to his staff. Had the good fortune of sitting in on a couple of these meetings. Is you got him to think about the schools as a customer service organization.
Yes.
That they're there because there's children.
Yes.
And we have to efficiently educate our children. We talked about the efficiencies in the Economic Development Committee. So you were able to change the mindset from one of, do we need to go for an override, to one is, no, let's look at the efficiencies and change the mindset of that organization.
Let's show that we are very effectively and efficiently spending every penny that's given to us before we ask for more. Absolutely. I think that's key. Because that's how I was raised. And I remember I mentioned that in my last campaign. I mean, it's just who I am. My father raised me, you know, to always live within your means. And again, before you ask someone for money, you make sure that you're spending every penny that you have as efficiently and as effectively as possible.
You know, the uncomfortable part in there, well, but I agree and I understand, and where I think the residents of Chelmsford can gain appreciation is that you're starting from the core building up.
Yes. As
opposed to accepting money where it comes from. But that also calls for tough decisions.
Yes. We've made a lot of tough decisions over the past few years in the school committee. And, you know, we have a partnership. I didn't mention it earlier, but we have a partnership with Bill Ricca for the food services director. And, you know, we share that. Her name's April, and she comes from Bill Ricca. She's a certified nutritionist, and she has, you know, just transformed our food services for our kids. Much healthier lunches, and she's looking to just revamp the entire program. And because we're sharing her with Bill Ricca, we're not responsible for the benefits, which is a savings to our town. We're also saving $20,000 a year with that partnership. So that's just one example. We also are partnering with special ed transportation with Bill Ricka and Tingsboro, and that's savings of approximately $280,000. And again, it's not sacrificing quality. If anything, it's improving the quality and providing cost savings.
So your customer wins again. The student
wins again. That's
the
right.
parents win, and the residents of Chelmsford win because it's not costing them anymore.
Absolutely.
In fact, it's costing them less at times.
Absolutely. And again, these are, these may be considered innovative decisions. To me, they're just common sense. Again, listening to the community, what's important to them, and truly serving them with our decisions.
And I go back to our work on economic development, which kind of dovetails this, because in our discussions, the challenges that you put forth for the commission in general was how do we balance the need of the residents with the needs of small and large business.
Yes.
And that's not an easy one because each have, at times, diametrically opposed views. But your training has helped you focus and get that common ground.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I know on the Economic Development Commission, we had to balance that. We had to balance not only trying to, attract new businesses in town, but balance that with respecting the current businesses in town, right? Like the Chelmsford Business Association. We worked with them a lot to make sure that, we're not tripping on anyone's toes, but we're creating a very business-friendly environment at the same time.
Well, and the other part, which is the hidden value system that within Chelmsford, and you were a big proponent of maintaining that open space.
Yes.
In economic development, because that's part of the community.
Absolutely.
So again, our challenge was how do you foster that, but you were a big proponent of open spaces. Right?
Absolutely. And also, I know a big focus with us on the Economic Development Commission was not building new buildings, but refurbishing the buildings that we currently have. That's really what makes sense. And, again, as hopefully one of my goals, should I be elected to the Board of Selectmen, is to set some goals around filling the current commercial vacancy rate. And that's just to refurbish those buildings so we don't have empty buildings around town. It could help provide jobs to our local residents and also provide a little economic boost to our businesses, people eating in our restaurants. Now, will filling those commercial vacancies provide a tremendous amount of additional revenue? Absolutely not. But what it does do is, like I said, provides a bit of an economic boost to the local businesses and hopefully provide some jobs to our local residents.
And we were talking off air before we got started.
Yes.
One of the things that also, in terms of the partnership, and it being a principal in your firm, and it's about creating those partnerships.
Yes.
Now, if I'm not mistaken here, is in your time on the school committee, I mean, you guys went really way out to try and get the business community to help out with the schools. Right?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, if you'd like to just mention about Lowell General Hospital, because you and Nick DeSilvio played such a key role in that, and we were very appreciative of that.
Well, Lowell General is an example, and there's others, whether it's Western Nurseries, there's some life sciences companies coming in. But I think that's the change in the mindset that you brought, is that let's look outside the box for solutions to fiscal situations.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's creating that atmosphere of, keep having an open mind and involving the community. Again, Dr. Tiano went out when he was talking with his strategic plan and spoke to all these different groups, including the Chelmsford Business Association, the Rotary Club, to talk to them and get their feedback. And they felt like they were buying into the process and that they were actually part of our schools. And that's what makes people, by connecting them like that, getting their emotions tied in, they want to give back more. And we have seen a lot of businesses contributing not only their time, but in donation of items, donation of money. We just had a new business come into town, Thermo Fisher Scientific, and they made a very nice donation to the high school for the library, the Learning Commons. And it just, it's just overwhelming, the response we get. And again, I think that comes down to that mindset of listening to the community and embracing that.
And I go one step further, going back to that voice of the customer, is understanding your customer. And as you talk about running for selectman, is your customer is every resident in this town.
Absolutely.
And I'm convinced that given your experience on the school committee and in economic development, you are going to listen to those customers.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's wired in me. That's who I am. That's what I do every day when I get up and go to work every day. That's my job. And when I come home, when I volunteer, that's in me as well. So I just see that as a natural transition over to the Board of Selectmen.
So in our last few minutes here,
okay,
we could talk about what do you see about the Board of Selectmen? Where would you like to see it and take it?
Okay. Well, like I said, if elected, my priorities would be tax relief by looking through the various departments through efficiency studies. See if there's identify areas for savings either through regionalization or consolidation. I'd like to see a little bit more transparency around the budget. Something that we do for the school system is every month we go through a monthly budget review, and what that does is it allows us on a line item basis in a public forum every month on camera go through that line item budget and see where we are, see where we're tracking. Do we see we're going to be under budget or over budget on different items? That way we can react to different items throughout the year, and it eliminates surprises at the end of the year.
Well, I think it goes one step further is with that transparency that you're proposing is every line item on that budget is open to a review by everyone watching.
Absolutely.
So it's not only whether you're below or above, but you're allowing them to question why is it there?
Because it's the taxpayers' money. And ultimately the Board of Selectmen are responsible for this. So that's why I find, I hold it dear to my heart that we have this out in open session. Now, I'm also about accountable leadership, not only for myself, but I think, we have very clear goals for the superintendent. As a matter of fact, part of his compensation is tied to meeting those goals. And I'd like to see that carried over to the Board of Selectmen as well, where very clear goals are given to the town manager. For example, if the board was to decide reducing commercial vacancy rates was important, we'd set some clear goals around that. And I think that would open up some very different conversations.
Now, as we're wrapping up, I guess the pitch is, what would you like to say to the residents of Chelmsford about your candidacy as we close?
Okay, is this where I'm asking for the vote?
You got it.
Okay. Hi, my name is Janet Askenburg, and I'm running for Chelmsford Board of Selectmen. I believe my business experience in my last 3 years on the Chelmsford School Committee makes me an excellent candidate for the Board of Selectmen. So on April 2nd, I respectfully ask for one of your 2 votes. Thank you.
Got mine.
Thank you.